Imagine you're playing this game against a 2700 and all of a sudden they start moving their king and their queen around. Well, my biggest fear was, come on man, don't lose this game now, because one thing is that they clown around like this and another thing is that they actually pull it off. It's happened to me in the past, but you're going to see in this game using the three rooms methods, everything became clear and very easy to convert this game. Now, all I'm thinking is, okay, from the beginning, I'm trying to do my stone wall like we learned in the chessable course. And the moment I see this, I'm like, okay, that's a little bit odd. You're not supposed to be doing this in room number one, but okay, I'm gonna keep going with my opening. And then after king d8, I know he's just clowning around, right? So at this point, I'm just laser focused on finishing game number one or completing room number one so that I can stand up and go to room number two, where I'm going to start attacking you before you get to develop the rest of your pieces. So forget about the stone wall and just develop your knight. Then the other knight, pawn to e4 just to get the other bishop out and make contact. And then after bishop e3, I'm going to improve my queen, and immediately I put the king in safety so that I can start attacking. Very important, I'm castling to the queen side because that way my rook is also developed and the rook lands on the same file where the king is. So after bishop b7, rook e1, I'm fully developed. At this point, like I've been telling you for the last few videos, in the three rooms methods, if I could, I would ask you now to stand up, go to another room so that you realize, you're conscious that you just finished with the opening. Now you gotta follow different rules in the middle game. And after pawn to g6, my opponent keeps moving pawns. All I need to do now is, like we covered in our latest video, look at my opponent's king. It is in the center. I'm going to open up the center. If I could, I would make these pawns disappear so that my rooks, my queens, my bishops, everyone starts attacking the king. So right or wrong, I don't even know if my next move is the best. Actually, it's not the best move, but it is consistent with opening up and attacking. Again, the last thing I want is to waste time and allow my opponent to develop their pieces, and then it is easier to defend. So my opponent, of course, is not letting me open up. He's just going to close the position. So now I keep asking myself or reminding myself, don't mess this up. You cannot lose this game. And the question to ask is, how do I open up the center? How do I target this pawn? Well, I want to do it with f4. So knight d2, bringing my knight also to the queen side. That's where the king is. And then I can play f4. So h5, they keep moving pawns. They keep messing with me. And I go pawn to f4. They take, I take. I'm ready to find a way to play e5 and remove all the pawns from in front of my queen and my rook. But then we got bishop a6. Now, another thing that we should do if we're defending, like the black pieces in this case, they should try to eliminate my attackers. So I go queen to f2, I defend my bishop, I'm not going to help them develop their knight, and of course I leave my rook open on the same file as their queen. So I have one rook on the same file as the king, one rook on the same file as their queen. The only problem I have is my pawns are in the way. So they took, I took back, my queen is a little bit more active, and I keep trying to play e5. But my opponent plays now knight to e5. Now, all I'm thinking is, how do I continue? I know that I'm better, I have the advantage, but how do I continue to open up the center? I need to get to that king. Well, this knight, how do I attack it? With my own knight. I don't have a dark square bishop, I don't have a pawn that could do it. So knight to f3, f6, my opponent continues to keep everything intact. And something that we always talk about is, in general, when we move a pawn in chess, weaknesses are created. This pawn was defending e6, and when it moved, I have to realize, I have to pay attention to what changed, and that is a weak square on e6. No black pawn could ever defend that. So my knight is going for that square. My opponent realizes things are getting weird now because my rooks, my major pieces are not getting in, but my knight just got deep into his territory. Again, Computer didn't like this move, but to me, it only makes sense. And after that, I'm going to secure that outpost by bringing the other knight around. I know it's a matter of time before they challenge my knight, so I want to be ready. There we go, knight d4. And after king to a7, notice how that king walked away, so they castled by foot. But still, I'm ahead in development, my pieces are better. The thing is, keep reminding myself, don't mess this up. So after king a7, all I'm thinking about is my pawn structure, or my pawn chain in the center is aiming at the queen side. My pieces are really, really active, and they are still behind in development. So the last video we talked about how to decide where to attack, where to expand. And here I'm thinking, you know what, even if I lose this game, I'm going to lose this game attacking. So I want to play rook e3 to bring the rook over with a rook lift, rook rollover to where the black king is. For that reason, I went bishop f1, just leaving this open for my rook, then rook e3, and of course, rook goes to the queen side. I'm gonna make a stop here to put pressure. They defend, I continue. Again, this is not the most accurate way to continue, but I am being consistent with what the position is asking. I would much rather be here with my rook putting pressure than defending like the black pieces are. Now, after king b8, time to bring the other rook up. This is not safe. Well, I'm gonna go rook to e1 and follow the same path that I used for the other rook. Knight d7, rook up, and then rook goes to c3. Now, I don't want to sacrifice anything unless I see something clear. I'm just here improving my pieces and keeping the pressure to see if my opponent opens up, to see if they make a mistake. It is much easier to attack again than it is to defend. Now, after rook c3, we got knight to c5. All I'm thinking is get that knight out of here and attack their king. Yes, in the process, I am exposing my king, but again, I have so many pieces around my king. I need to continue to be energetic to get to their king and exploit the lack of coordination that they have. So knight takes me, I replace the knight, that was always the plan. And now pawn to f5. Here we take a moment. Should we take, should we not? And I really like the fact that my bishop is putting pressure on a6. So I'm thinking, yes, I'm going to take. They took on d5, but now I get to collect on a6 with a tempo. So for all I know, I'm up a pawn. I keep getting closer to that king. And especially now that they took my knight, without this bishop, their light squares around the king are going to be very, very, very weak. So happy to take rook f8. I'm looking for that checkmate. My opponent defends. And here I'm thinking, come on, I'm so close to winning this. I think the evaluation is like 4 point something. But I'm very capable of messing this up. So I keep telling myself, keep it simple. Don't make any silly mistakes. This is not the time to blunder a piece. So my next move, bring the bishop back, just trying to take, followed by rook a3 and then checkmate. But my opponent knows better, so check. Okay, I gotta move the king, king b2, and now rook to f4. At this point, I have to tell you, I thought to myself, this is why you're not making it to the 2700s. You just messed up. I thought I had lost the game until I looked and I looked and I looked, and I'm thinking, this queen is the one stopping my pawn from getting to the end and is also defending the rook. So I just went pawn to a7, and if you take me, I'm going to take. Now, I think the computer wanted me to take on f4 and then e7, but I'm not that fancy. So e7, queen goes back. If they had taken, then I just promote, and this is completely winning now for us, right? There has to be checkmate already. So my opponent takes on e7. We're winning by a lot now that we got the rook. And then with simplification, even better. Now, these are just last resources they're looking for, discovery. Very easy to just, at this point, just play c3, anything that doesn't give your opponent anything. Now, this pattern, very important. Bishop 2 squares away from the knight. It controls the knight. So under time pressure, that's something that I'm paying attention to. Here, I actually took a moment and played pawn to c3. Don't give him anything. Then pawn to c6, and again, the easiest move is keep this pattern and go bishop e2. The same thing, you got two squares in between the bishop and the knight so that you control that knight. I don't even have to calculate. I know that knight is not gonna get me in trouble, right? So instead of doing this, I went bishop c6, then my opponent plays knight to d3, and after they take my queen, I have this nice resource, check, check, and I get the queen. Now, this is the moment the queens are off the board, I transition from room number 2 to room number 3, the endgame, and I know it's all about getting these pawns, getting my pawns to the end, promote, and that's the end of it. I don't even want to checkmate the king anymore. I just want to get the pawn to the end. Now, I don't have to tell you this, but this nice resource that I got here was a mistake. I did not realize this was a fork. I didn't see that coming. Luckily, I had this resource and I found it, but that was another moment where I was like, I can't believe it. I won't be able to use this game for a YouTube video. So after we got the queen, very simple now, just get a pawn, check, just stay away from those, the same pattern. We had a video on how to deal with the knight. Just put the king either one square in between diagonally or right on top of it or on the sides so that the knight cannot put you in check again. Now give me the other pawn. There we go, push, check. I'm gonna go away somewhere that you cannot put me in check again. Push, knight f4. Again, I wanna put the rook either really far or one step diagonally from in between, right? From that knight. So they come over, I push, check, right on top of it again. You won't put me in check again. G7, and then finally my opponent is in trouble. With the queen on the board, I have check, and then checkmate. And there you have it. Feel free to go over it again. But the most important thing is the moment I see them giving me an advantage in development, I just want to develop my pieces quickly, open up the center, and attack. Can we mess it up? Yes, but at least we lose doing the right thing, and this is what's going to give us the better chances to win the game.